Sweet. So how you doing this fine Sunday afternoon?
Okay, what's going on in Pennsylvania up there, Cole?
Well, it's funny you ask. Uh, a Friday I wore shorts to class. It was in the 70s, and today is probably in the 30s. And there was even a tornado that we think touched down yesterday, about a couple miles
Oh,
away. So we had torrential downpours. I was in the mall with my 5-year-old son when the hail started to come, and we took refuge in the garage, parking garage in the basement for 2 hours.
no,
So, usual
some
wild and evil
weather up
weather.
there. Yeah,
Well, climate change is not real, clearly, so we wouldn't see this vacillation.
right.
So it was it was intense. A little father son bonding where I was trying to tell him, no, it's fine outside. We're just gonna hang out in the garage. That's the fun thing to do. So
Yeah.
I had to do a lot of that. Well, I'm taping this from here. I'm taping this from here. That's working. And let's see. All right, so let's see here. So as always, just to reiterate, because we're going to talk about some stuff that's quote unquote sensitive, right? You get final say, obviously, right? So you're going to see the transcript of this once my RAs and I render it. Catherine and I look it over. And if there's anything that we talked about that you don't want out there, it doesn't go out there. And if anything you want to adjust or change, of course, that's
Okay,
always
that's
welcome.
great, Barry. I'm sure everything will be fine. Yeah.
Cool. All right, so a couple things I wanted to touch on. So, in your interview with Catherine, it was great, but one topic I'd love to flesh out some more is some of the obstacles and challenges and impediments you had to study some of the topics you have from an evolutionary perspective. So that's a running theme in the book, starting with Ed Wilson, right? So in the 1970s, particularly when he started to apply evolutionary theory to humans and human behavior, he caught a lot of flack, to put it mildly, as I'm sure you're aware. And
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you did as well. And I'd like to learn a little bit more about that, particularly in light of your 2000 book with Craig Palmer, A Natural History of Rape, Biological Bases of Sexual Coercion. Before we get to the controversy, I'm wondering, and I always wondered this back when I was in grad school and we were reading it, is what was it like to write a book with someone who had a slightly different take on your central thesis? If I understood correctly, you were more of the belief that rape itself was selectively advantageous in the past, and there were specific mechanisms for it, much like with the scorpion fly, whereas he thought it was
Right.
more of a byproduct of males' penchant to use violence to accomplish a means. Is that about right?
Right. Yeah, that's it. So we both entertained those two hypotheses. Craig was of the opinion that in the end, when all the evidence was in, that the byproduct hypothesis would be supported over the rape adaptation hypothesis. And my feeling was the other way around. And the reason that I felt that way is that um, rape is rape is so costly to the perpetrator. Uh, you can get in, the rapist can get injured. The rapist can get ostracized from the community if he's doing it within the group. Between group rape is typically okay if you look at the ethnographic record. It's but in warfare and raids and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. It's fine for the guys to do that. But within group rape can carry severe penalties. So the cost of it is considerable. So given the high cost, you would expect selection to act directly on that behavior and associated psychology, and so that um, adjust it such that men would engage in it only when the benefits exceed the cost. The ancestral benefits and cost would be the key thing for the expression of rape. So that was my thinking, and it's not to say that means that all rapes would be adaptive or
Mm-hmm.
ancestrally adaptive. With any adaptation, you can get byproduct aspects. So, men raping old ladies and
Yeah.
post-reproductive females and so forth is always a byproduct. But you even get the byproduct expression in systems in which there appears to be actual rape adaptation. Some of
Mm-hmm.
the seals, for example, the males primarily focus their rape on estrus females.
Mm-hmm.
Males will also rape baby seals and corpses
Mm-hmm.
of seals and so forth. So you get a mix of adaptive expression of rape adaptation and byproduct, and that's probably what we have in humans. But that's those are actually the two viable hypotheses for the ultimate understanding of rape. It's either a rape adaptation, directly selected phenomenon, or indirectly selected as a byproduct, and so that still stands. I mean that. We haven't moved from that at all. That those are the two viable hypotheses for rape. You can't explain rape on the basis of something like genetic drift because of the high cost associated with it and the complexity. When you get complex features in living things, you're talking about either direct selection or indirect selection responsible for it. So that's kind of where all that is. Yeah.
We'll get to the controversy part in a sec, but along those lines, so it's about 17 years later, maybe 18 or so since you actually wrote it. Have you seen the data move in one direction or the other to support the byproduct or direct adaptation hypothesis?
That's been disappointing.
Hmm.
And I assumed what would happen was that some young whippersnappers, some young risk-prone scientists would pick up on this thing and go with it because it's potentially a lot of social costs to think about rape in the first place, and to actually try to get a grant, to do the kinds of studies needed to sort those two ultimate hypotheses out would be extremely difficult and scary for most people. Sensible people who want to have a career in science. So, but I assume that these odd and controversial topics sometimes will attract odd people who are willing to take the risk, like you and me. You know what I mean?
I know.
And so, but it hadn't happened. But Craig and I have laid out in some of our writing in detail the kinds of evidence that would discriminate these hypotheses, and the person closest to trying it is a psychologist in California, Neil Malamud.
Sure.
You know that name, Neil Malamud?
UCLA, sure. Communications.
Yeah, right. He did a bunch of stuff early in his career on rape videos and looking at the effects of men on watching rape videos and so forth. And that kind of paradigm, research paradigm, where you can very carefully control the information processed by men, and so you could manipulate the ancestral cues, benefits and cost cues associated with rape, and see if men's arousal, which you can measure objectively with penile tumescence measures, if men's arousal is sensitive to ancestral kinds of benefits and costs. For example, we suggested things like you manipulate the power, the social power of a victim's family. So you have a video, you'd have to create these, it'd be new porno videos, basically. Create these videos that manipulate the power of the victim's family. So if under when she's coerced, when the sex is coerced, then men, if they have rape adaptation, should be sensitive to the social power of the family. So if she has a powerful family, reduced arousal compared to consensual sex. You compare it to the same man's arousal in a consensual scenario. And then you can manipulate the number of male protectors the female victim has, and if in the rape scenario, men should be sensitive to the number of male protectors the female has. In a consensual scenario, that wouldn't affect the males around us. So we laid out a bunch of stuff like that, and Neil has been very interested in it. And I've talked to him at length, and he has even said he has been thinking about initiating research, but I haven't actually seen anything come out, and I haven't talked to him now in about 2 years about it. So, and he had a student, a graduate student too, who was getting very interested in that. So that could happen.
Yeah.
um, and so we'll see. So that's one disappointment, that people haven't taken it up. People will say, "Well, why don't you do it?" But I got off on other things,
Yeah.
and so did Craig. And I mean, we figure we did quite a bit with it to get it started and all. So we haven't done nothing. Yeah.
1 second, I just want to close one window here. I'm sure, of course, one reason some people didn't was because of the hot water and the flack you and Craig took for this. I remember this. We all kind of anticipated it. We kind of hoped that people wouldn't commit the naturalistic fallacy and accuse you of rationalizing, accusing, or justifying sexual rape or sexual coercion and rape. It's baffling on one angle and also entirely predictable on another angle.
Yeah.
What were some of the things that you went through? Did you get protests? Do you have a range of terms that you were called derisively?
Let's see. Yeah, the naturalistic fallacy certainly is a stumbling block for so many people. I mean, even after you explain it to them and they say, "Oh, yeah," then they turn right around and make it again, especially on hard topics. Sex differences,
Yep.
especially sexual coercion, the mind just crumbles. And these are very, very difficult things to think about because of the social costs, I think. It's just easier and more socially adaptive to not think outside the box oftentimes. And, that then you get into how traditional and uh, narrow-minded people are, and that's a variable, of course. And but even people who have training in evolutionary biology and so forth often stumble with the. I mean, some of the critics were evolutionary biologists.
I think Jerry Coyne
And
wrote
Jerry
one.
Coyne and is an evolutionary biologist. Yeah.
I don't remember the tenor of his review. I remember where I was. I remember reading it, and I remember
Yeah.
being excited to read it, and I remember being incredibly disappointed.
Yeah, right. And me too. Disappointed. And when I'd get on the radio or TV or whatever with Coyne, they'd often have him because he was a professor at the University of Chicago, proclaimed, self-identified evolutionary biologist, and he is one. He studies speciation, and that's a big area of evolutionary biology, of course. And so they'd have Coyne on there, and I often just said, you should be ashamed of yourself when I say these things, that rape's not biological. Or then he'd say, oh, well, it's kind of biological, and evolution doesn't apply to things like that. I mean, just stupid things that he should know better from his first class in evolutionary biology, unless he took it from Richard Lewontin. Richard Lewontin was his mentor. And so that, I'm sure, really screwed up his head with regard to thinking about the application of any of that to human behavior and psychology in particular. And it's remarkable what the naturalistic fallacy can do. And I hit it, I know you do too, in your course, in your teaching. You have to hit it over and over again. You can't just hit it once. And, bring in other examples and explain the fallacious way to think about these things and homosexuality, those kinds of things that are so hard for people.
A friend and I were talking yesterday about our interview here. Doug Sellers, who's an evolutionary psychologist, and he made the point that if you're studying, say, child abuse from an evolutionary perspective, like Daley and Wilson have, no one accuses them of trying to justify, excuse, or increase the degree to which children are abused. It's amazing how selective that naturalistic fallacy is applied. And so much of it is probably social signaling. I need to convey to others, particularly to women, that this is not something that I'm for, which sets up a false dichotomy, implying that others who think it's biological are for it. It's absurd. I remember saying once in grad school, I wonder if Randy had written on the bottom of every single page I am not
Don't.
saying the following. Do not commit the naturalistic fallacy.
Well,
I don't think it
Craig
would have
counted
helped.
the number. Craig counted the number of times
Hmm,
in our in which we cautioned the reader.
hmm.
Now we're going into some intellectually difficult areas here, so do not make the naturalistic fallacy. And it was 8 times in the
Hmm.
book that we did that, over and over and over. And I was just reading uh, David Buss's new
Hmm.
edition of The Evolution of Desire. And it surprised me in the first edition, and it's still in the second edition, that he only brings up the naturalistic fallacy one time in
You're
there,
right.
and then just kind of lets it go, rather than have him bring it up. And I use that book. I love the book. I use the book in my Evolution of Human Sexuality class. It's a upper level undergrad class, and the students like it. But of course I hit the naturalistic fallacy a lot, but. I've often wondered if why David didn't put more emphasis on that, because I bet he does in his courses.
Hmm.
You're one of his
Yeah,
prodigies.
I am. Oh, I hit
Yes.
it hard. It's that first day or second day if we're delayed, and I get
Yeah.
on a
Right.
soapbox, and I tell them, and I'm not going to usually tell you what to think, except in this situation. The rest, you can believe what you want, but you're not going to do this in front of me. And then once I do that, then I go, there's also the moralistic fallacy. We're not going to be
Right.
denying things simply because they're uncomfortable or an inconvenient truth. I won't tolerate that either.
Yeah. That's
And
just as
pop up
important to me.
occasionally.
Yeah.
And I say with
Right.
regards to sex differences, and like, gentlemen, we'll talk about things in here like infidelity, and you are not to be saying to your partners, "Sorry, it was in my genes." It's just, I'm not going to accept that. So, yeah, we hit it hard. So a lot of our undergrads get this better than some of our fellow peers
I
who are
know.
publishing
I
on
know.
this.
That's true.
Now,
True.
what kind of so obviously I know about the coin and
Yeah.
some other things. Did you get in person flack? Did you get
Oh
protest or
yeah.
hate mail?
We got lots and lots. I mean, now it's popular if you followed the Trump
Hmm.
issues, talking about the fake press. The Trump's talking about the fake
Sure.
press, real critical of the press, and I certainly had experience with that, because what they do, the press. I mean, the best of it is really good. The press, the media, but about much of it is just a bunch of crap, the media. And what they'll do is just look for some story that they can sensationalize, and distortion of information is no problem, and that kind of thing. So the press did a terrible job in general in presenting it, and it was. Included, the first big story was in the New York Times, and they did a terrible job.
Hmm.
Didn't bother to look at the book. And naturalistic fallacy made all over the place and so forth there, and so we had a lot of trouble with just the presentation in the media, and then so you get these distortions. Thornhill and Palmer are saying that rape is great and we should let all the rapists out of prison and all that kind of stuff, and give them a tax credit, the rapists, or something. So, and then that would be picked up by the next media outlet, and sensationalized even more, and so forth. So they got into that kind of thing. So I can kind of understand where Trump is coming from, almost from that kind of experience with the fake press. I mean, again, some of them did a really good job, and a few of them did a really good job. But the personal attacks were got scary.
Hmm.
And
I was worried about that.
we had a lot of death threats. Palmer and I both had death threats by internet and telephone. And the scariest one I had was I did a gig on the Today Show, about the book, and it was shot in a local TV studio here in Albuquerque, and then telecast live on the Today Show. And so I drove from the TV station to my office at the University of New Mexico. Walked in the office, and the phone rang, and it was my wife, and she said that she had just gotten a call from a guy who said that he'd come to kill them, the people in the house, and he was at the house now. And she said she had already called the sheriff, and we lived on kind of the edge of town at that point, and it was the domain of the sheriff rather than the city of Albuquerque. So she had called the sheriff, and so I had her on the phone. She said, too, that he's trying to break in the back door right now, the sliding glass back door. And so I had her on the phone, and I heard the siren, the police siren coming down there, and that was the sheriff. And so he got there in a couple of minutes, so he did a really good job and scared the guy off.
Oh.
He ran. We lived adjacent to an open area, West Mesa it's called, and he ran and got away. They searched for him the rest of the day. They couldn't find him. But that was the scariest thing. So the sheriff then put a message on the home message machine that said, when anybody calls and the message starts, "This is the sheriff of Bernalillo County. It's against the law to call people up and tell them you're going to kill them. And your phone you're being taped now." He wasn't actually taping him, but that stopped the death threats at home. Palmer was getting them too, and both universities, my university and Palmer's university, got lots and lots of emails, letters, and so forth demanding that they fire us. And Palmer was at Colorado State University at the time, and the dean there, or provost, whatever he was, a high official, came out and said that they supported Palmer. He didn't even have tenure.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, supported him and supported his academic freedom and so forth. My university was silent on that, and I hold that against them, of course, or against those clowns that were the top administrators at that point. And but what my university did do was they were worried that there was going to be a problem in my classroom. I was teaching the evolution of human sexuality, that term. It's a popular upper-level course, and there were reporters in the classroom every day. They interviewed the students. Hell, they interviewed my mother. She did a real good job on it, actually. But anyway, the university had the campus police escort me to and from class every day. So the policeman would come by my office, pick me up, take me to my classroom, and sit through the lecture, and then bring me back after that. We did that about half a semester, and I finally told them I'd just take it from there. But that's one thing that the university did do. So I had some support, I guess, from the university.
How about for your department and faculty in general? Were you a messiah or were you a pariah?
Yeah, I think, most biologists still haven't given serious thought to human behavior and psychology, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah,
And,
I believe it.
It's, again, the social cost. You just don't think about that kind of stuff. It's just an easier world if you don't ever seriously think about human beings in light of evolution. And so I've got a lot of good colleagues, but, they're good researchers and so forth, but they're not. I'm very unusual for a faculty member in a biology department in the United States in particular, to be in a biology department and do the kinds of research that I've done on humans. Of course, much of my research has been on non-human systems too, but the bulk of it has been on humans, I guess, and so that's pretty unusual. So I don't have anybody. I had a couple of people that were at least sympathetic that I could talk to, and they would support me and so forth in the department. But that was just a few, yeah. And of course, over in Anthro, we had good people. We had Jane Lancaster just across campus. Hillard Kaplan, Kim Hill at that point, people like that are very supportive of that. And in psychology, Steve Gangstad has been a close colleague throughout, and of course he was supportive. So, so most of the support on campus really was outside of my own department, you know. So, yeah.
How are the students? Did they have reactions to this?
Students, the students were they did wonderful. Like the students in my class who were at, it's a class of about 100 students, 300 level, junior, senior level, and has a number of prerequisites. And so they're good students, and they, I was training them through the lectures and so forth too. It was a good teaching context for, here's what the press says, and here's what's reality, and so sort that out. And so that's a good teaching mechanism for them. But the students, they always said smart things when interviewed on local TV, which was frequent. They'd grab students after class for, and with the local newspapers and so forth. I mean, it was literally for about 6 months, maybe 8, on the local news every night. What's going on with the book and the publicity? It was crazy, Barry. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah.
So many questions. How did it affect book sales at all, or do you think? And follow-up question.
Book sales?
Yeah.
Well, people didn't actually read the book.
Yeah, that's what I was waiting for.
the media and so forth, they, didn't bother to really look at what we were saying. and so it didn't, I mean, the book sold okay. And it's just been a new edition in, let's see, Korean has just been done. So it's plugging along. Yeah, it's still plugging along. And citations of the book are good, very strong over the years. And so, academic citations. So I'm pleased with that. Yeah, pleased with that.
Were you getting protests if you tried to give talks on it? Were any talks you were giving around rescinded?
Let's see. Had one Boston University. I went there, and some women's group protested the seminar invitation, and they ended up having to have my talk down in the basement of some building because they were afraid there was going to be a big display. That was one, and then there was the incident with HBES too, that some people in HBES didn't want me to be invited to the HBES meeting, believe it or not.
Which one?
Which meeting?
Yeah.
Or which people?
Which meeting? Oh, I'll let you answer. I definitely want to know which meeting. I'll let you decide if you want to answer the other one.
I always just hear this person who was just kind of I heard it was such and such a person, so gotcha. I don't know.
No worries.
That was back before that. That was actually back before the book was published, and the attitude of these opponents in HBES was that they just didn't like my attitude about rape, and they didn't think I should be invited. Back at the beginning of HBES, the way they structured it is that they would invite several people who were doing research in the area, and I was always one of them, who would get invited to give like a 50-minute lecture. This was back even before HBES was formalized and became a society, a formal scientific society. And it was in that period because I started writing on rape and insects, and then mentioning other animals too in the context of the writing about insects in about 1980. And then the first paper I did on human rape was 83. So it was about in there that the HBES, a few HBES people went berserk about that, and I mean, when I went to that meeting that they tried to prevent me from coming to, and I gave a talk on rape, actually, rape victim pain of rape victims,
I'm familiar with this.
and yeah, we did a lot of research on that, and so after my talk, it was like a plenary 45-minute talk. Dick Alexander got up and he said, "This Randy's invitation to come here this year has been very controversial, and I want to open up now discussion of what could have been the negative reactions to the kind of talk you've just heard him give. I just given this very empirical, analysis of rape victim pain, big data set, 800 rape victims, that kind of thing. Very, very strong, both, conceptually strong as well as empirically strong talk. And nobody had any complaints in the audience. And I don't know if the people who were against it were there or not, but people said nice things about it. They thought it was well-conducted research and so forth. So I was very pleased with that. But that was just a weird little thing. Couple of, I mean, you can get people that are getting into that moralistic display, as you mentioned, and so forth, even in HBES.
But this was
Yeah.
before HBES was in a society. This is what, pre-87, 88, or is this later? Is this around the book?
No, that was. That incident was about, that was probably about 19, it's about 85, something like that.
That's
yeah.
Good. Well, what
85.
around in 2000 or so, when the book comes out, did you have some HBESers reaching out, supporting you?
Very little. I mean, there was some. I mean, most of the people in HBES were in agreement, right? I mean, of course you can evaluate sexual coercion of humans in evolutionary perspective. I mean, that's a no-brainer for the average HBESer, right? And but I did get some nice emails from various people, Buss and Flynn and Alexander and a bunch of people, Irons and Chagnon, those guys, saying, sorry you're getting so much grief and so forth from the media, and keep up the good work. That was supportive and helpful at that stage. But there was never any invitation from HBES at that point after the book to give a talk on it or anything like that at the meeting. But that's kind of understandable too, because they kind of already know that, so I don't know.
How was your health during that?
So Craig and I were a little bit disappointed, actually, in the way it was handled by HBES, but I don't know what we really, would expect. The health thing.
So for 6 months, this was on the local news. The story you said earlier, I still can't get out of my mind. Let me briefly revisit this one. There was a gentleman who said he was going to murder your family on the phone to your wife. And he said he was at the house, or your wife noticed?
Yeah, he was at the house, and he was trying to get in the back door at the time. So she's on the phone, and she just hung up the phone. He just hung up the phone after calling her and telling her that he was going to kill the people in the house. And then she hears him trying to get through the back door, sliding glass back door. He says he's at the house. And I was on the phone. I was at my office on the phone with her now. And she was telling me what was going on. Then I heard the siren, the police siren, coming down the street. And then the guy ran off. Yeah.
Have you told this? Is this out there? Do people know about this? Or any of this, the hot water and the flag?
I've told it. Some version of it is in what's her name's book, the Galileo's Middle Finger. Have you seen that book?
Sure. I know the author and I'm familiar with the book, but I haven't read it.
Alice Degler, yeah.
Absolutely.
she looks at, as you may know, she looks at scientists that have been persecuted since Galileo. And of course, Craig and I are right in there in that, and Chagnon, of course, and Mike Bailey, and a bunch of HBES that got persecutions. And so there's some stories like that in there, but not any embellished version of that. Yeah, that was the scariest.
How was your health during this time?
At the house, my wife was so she's in the house, and my daughter was in the house with her, the only two people in the house. She was 2 years old. The was 2 years.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So you can imagine. Yeah. And when she called me at the office, she had just hung up the phone with the guy, and had already called the sheriff. What
did all this stress do to your physical health, your mental health at the time?
It was stressful, but Craig and I were doing a lot of writing too there, and responding to critics and so forth in writing. We felt that Craig, like me, I mean, we're teachers, so we see it as an opportunity to teach people some biology, and we ran with that opportunity. We stopped everything really, and did our writing. We published a bunch of papers, replies to these critics, replies to those critics, and those kind of things following that, and in an effort to clarify and hopefully inform whomever might be interested in being informed, and some people were, But just last month I got an email from a gal who was a undergraduate at the University of, I think it was University of Chicago. At least it was a university in Illinois in the year 2000. She was an undergraduate. And in her course, I don't remember whether she said it was a sociology course or a psychology course or an anthro course or whatever, but the professor had them read some critique of the Natural History of Rape book. And that she was completely against me. She thought I was the devil, in reading this, probably one of Coyne's things. And so then she wrote, after she read, then Alice Degler's book came out in 2015. She read that, and she said she saw the light. She just wanted to send me an email, real nicely. Send me an email to say how wrong she was initially, and that she now felt herself much more educated, and just wanted to contact me. That was just last month. You get cool things like that going on still after all these years. That woman, she's now a grown woman and really sees the world differently now. So that's good.
Did you have any academics who were initially very skeptical, who were persuaded because of the book? Anyone come around, particularly some standard social science model scientists or gender feminists? Did anyone come around?
No, not that I'm aware of. Those people are pretty entrenched, as you well know, in their ideologies and anti-intellectualism and magic and all that stuff that they like prioritize. So it's hard to pull them over into the real world. But some of the local feminists, gender feminist gals in anthropology were pretty big opponents, actually. A lot of radio, and then they'd call me up. I'd be on the radio show with some gender feminists from Anthro at the University of New Mexico. He doesn't have a clue. I mean, you don't even believe in genes, that kind of thing. I noticed you did that paper on equity versus gender feminism in relation to, that's cool. I talk about that kind of thing in my course. I mean, equity feminism is good feminism, and that's democratic feminism. But the 70s, 60s, and 70s feminism got lost. Good feminism got lost entirely. So I guess that's a theme of your article. I haven't read it, but I just noticed it recently somewhere and read other stuff. So I'd like to get a copy of that and actually see what you said.
Sure. A brief story on that front. I'm going to start this. So let me make this short. So I found The Evolution of Desire by looking for a book by a feminist author I quite like, Camille Paglia, sometimes said Paglia.
Right.
And I was looking for her book because she was a Binghamton University alumni, as was I, and
Yeah.
I started to get into the intersection between evolutionary psychology and feminism. Then I realized Camille Paglia was a professor there. She was valedictorian, the whole deal.
Right.
I went to a women's studies department and I asked to what degree was she being taught, to what degree was Darwin being taught. I was told Darwin was a misogynist. She let me sit down in a class, and then she said I couldn't talk, but then I talked, then she kicked me out. And then public safety kind of called the next day and was like, probably should stay away from there. And I was like, okay, no problem.
Harassment issues.
Oh, and it was nowadays I probably would have been expelled. Like,
Yeah.
a different climate. But back then it was just more of a, hey, stay away from that. So when I found Buss's Sex, Power, and Conflict, Evolutionary and Feminist Perspectives, I was like, great. These things are really melding, and I was getting into it. And I don't remember exactly how this happened, but I emailed you in grad school when I was Barry Friedman before I took my ex-wife's last name. I don't know if you were asking or you were wondering about whether there were some feminists who did have a more biological or rational take on it. And I
Right.
mentioned to you Camille Paglia, and I think you said something like, yes, I was familiar. And
Yeah, that's coming back to me now. Absolutely. Yeah, she's good compared to most of them. Right, right. There are a few like that. I mean, more and more women who used to call themselves feminists too are realizing that they can really only call themselves there if they adopt the equity feminist kind of perspective and not the gender feminist kind of perspective. That's more consistent really with their values, the democratic kind of values. And men are fine. Men are fine. So yeah, I do remember that now. That's cool. Yeah, she was a good one. She was sensible. Yeah.
What other kind of cost came of this? Did you lose, were there promotion issues or raise issues or talks besides, worrying about your family being slaughtered? What other costs came from this?
No costs in those regards. Let's see. I never really had a problem with promotions. They went on time and all that kind of stuff. There were raise issues, but they didn't have anything to do with that book. That had to do with cronyism. So that eventually got fixed in my department too. So the problem of kind of benefiting your friends kind of thing, cronyism, that's so detrimental to academics. But that didn't have anything to do with the book. Yeah.
How different do you think the reception would have been if it was published by, I don't know, Rhonda, Thornhill, and Corinna Palmer? What if you guys were women?
I think they would have, the critics would have just said those women are traitors. I mean, I did some work with my former wife on rape, Nancy Thornhill,
Sure.
and she was called a traitor publicly. We lectured at Simon Fraser University about 1985, something like that, 83, 85. It's about 83. It's right after a joint paper on human rape came out, Thornhill and Thornhill. They had us up there for public lecture, university-wide lecture. The pickets, it was a mess. We had to fight the picket lines to get into the lecture room. And the feminist opponents basically claimed Nancy was a traitor, that she had gone to the other side, the science side, or whatever they were calling it then. And so I think that's what would have happened had two uh, two women written that book. Yeah.
Incredible. Do you think it's become easier or harder to study this topic 17 years later?
It must be still very hard, given that there's been so little research on it. Even stuff like rape victim pain, that area, which would seem to have such a practical aspect. Women are greatly disturbed by sexual coercion for reasons we understand, and it'd be really nice to know a heck of a lot about that. And you should be able to get a grant from NIH, to study that kind of. We tried to get a grant from NIH to study that further, and they said no. Of course, they won. The no way to tap into that. And NSF, you'd expect those kinds of agencies to support that kind of work. And they might not support the porno video approach to whether men have rape adaptation in their psychology or not. But you'd expect them to at least get on the rape victim pain. That's a little easier. But I think it's still quite difficult. I've gotten inquiries from a number of people to do documentaries on this topic, like the whole history of the controversy and the biology of rape and the evolutionary biology of rape, like a documentary on that. And some couple of times they've sent me actually transcripts of what they have in mind, an outline of the program, as they've said, to get input from me. And I was always willing to help them, but then they died. I think they just couldn't get the support, they just couldn't get the support.
Yeah.
To do a documentary, so that's still outstanding too. I think that would really be nice to do
Here's the deal.
a science documentary on the whole thing for some young filmmaker.
I think now is that time. So you're a bit older. I don't think there's been a time in my life where rape has been this much in pop culture and this much on our minds, especially with our current regime and examples on campus. It's getting a lot more attention. And what's most maddening to me is we're all wanting to mitigate and minimize and decrease this happening. So you would think an all hands on deck approach to understanding the phenomenon would be kind of the best way to go. But there's such a reluctance to even consider certain viewpoints. At least back in the day, I was wondering if nowadays it would be more open to it, because we're talking about rape in the public sphere much more than we ever have.
Right. Although, the discussion of rape during the 70s, rape was a central feature of the women's movement.
Against our will.
Absolutely. And the whole ideology was it has nothing to do with biology. It's men's fucked up brains and that kind of stuff. And fucked up society that makes Western men this way and all that kind of stuff. It was really nonsense, but the discussion was it was a central feature. Take Back the Night, that was all part of that rape program. And but again, what's going on now with it, discussion it's receiving and priority it's receiving in general societal discussion is very high again. So it could be a time for somebody to jump in there and try to do something serious with it, scientific.
Here's something that I was talking with, again, a friend of mine, Doug Sellers, about. And it's something that would be so controversial, but it would obviously do so much good. So one way to, for example, to decrease the prevalence of rape would be the following: to create a system where women felt incredibly comfortable coming forward when they have been raped and trying to seek justice for that. That is, making sure their rapists are prosecuted. And they don't feel comfortable now for doing so for very good reasons. There are many times the judicial system isn't in their favor, and there's a lot of bias for it, and there's a lot of social stigma with being a rape victim. But given that many rapists are serial rapists, the classic would be the Bill Cosby, they're racking up insane numbers that if you ended one of those rapists' ability to keep raping, many, 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 many women would not be. And yet, if I was to say something like that, to say if we can help women to get to that point, I'm blaming the victim for future rapes. I'm making it her responsibility such that he doesn't rape again. And that's insane. All
Yeah.
I'm saying is if we can create a society where we can prosecute them so they don't keep getting away with it, we would see less of it. But now I'm putting the onus on women, is what I would be accused of.
Right. Right. Sure. Yeah, it's hard to avoid that mind frame way of thinking about it, the blame aspect. But I just keep reminding them, okay, you can analyze, you can look at the information, you can look at the evidence, and that's a different approach than blame.
Yes.
And just yeah, I think just like the naturalistic fallacy, you'd have to remind them over and over and over again that explicitly, there's no blame here. We're analyzing. We're trying to get at what would improve the world through better knowledge and so forth. Yeah.
Mm. In retrospect, do you think you would have written or done anything different with that book or other works you've done on rape?
No, I don't think so. Palmer and I have talked about that,
Yeah.
and we both agreed. And he's as hardcore as I am. Do you know Craig well at
I've
all?
not met him, no.
Yeah, he's wonderful. He's a real deal. Yeah, in terms of intellectual honesty and all that kind of stuff. And hadn't been attending HBES regularly in the last several years, but I hope he gets back into that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I tell you, I think I've covered. I mean, that's just great. I don't know what to tell you, but I knew there was a lot here that I hadn't heard and maybe not had been told, and that would be perfect for our book. And I got that and more. And on behalf of humans everywhere, I'm very sorry you had to go through all that. It's I mean, and it's incredible. It's like no good deed goes unpunished. So
That's right.
it's incredible.
If you have questions as you think about it and it comes up, feel free to get in touch with me. We could chat again anytime. So that's great. What kind of schedule are you guys on?
Good question. So Catherine's interviews have all been transcribed and edited, and she's currently sending them out to her subjects. I've done a couple of mine, so it's more of my interviews now. I have to transcribe, edit, flesh out, and send them to our subjects, who then give us feedback, et cetera, et cetera. But ideally, the book itself is due, I think, in mid-July, and then I think they thought maybe publishing in early 2018 is what their plan was.
Well, Catherine did the interview at HBES with me.
Yep.
Initially, so is she my? You both are my interviewers now.
Yeah,
I guess
so. We haven't really chatted about that. I'm gonna
anything from Catherine. I don't believe. I haven't got.
Haven't yet. No, I we thought it was best I contact you because we wanted to add to it. So what I'm going to do is have my RAs transcribe it, and then I edit it. I'll give it back to Catherine. We'll probably try to weave it together somehow so it doesn't seem disjointed.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
We'll flesh it out, send it to you, and then we'll have questions and comments, and then
right.
You send it back and we take it from there.
Right. So how many people are going to be featured in the book?
Good question. Right now, I think we're at around 24 subjects. Now, it's unclear if all of them will make it. I don't know. There's space constraints. We have no idea how long it's going to be.
Right.
But right now, I think there's 24 interviewees. Yeah. So there's a lot. I mean, undoubtedly, a lot of them. I mean, Ed Wilson's was like 2.5 hours. Bob Trevor's was something similar. So there has to be some heavy editing. And as you can imagine, between you and I,
you got Jagnon in there too now.
We do.
Yeah.
But it's between me and you. Editing Robert Trivers is not something you really want to do. So
yeah.
Hey Robert, I think we should take this out. You want to do what?
Since the beginning.
So,
actually, I applied to work as Bob's first postdoc.
Get out.
I finished my PhD and I was working on sexual selection in insects at the time. And there were only two people in the world who knew anything about sexual selection, Bob Trivers and Jeff Parker in the UK. So I wrote Bob and said, Bob, I'd like to come up there to Harvard and work as a postdoc for a year or two with you. I've got some insect projects going and finish those up and so forth. And but that didn't work out. He didn't have any money basically, but he liked the idea. So we've been friends ever since.
Absolutely one of my intellectual heroes, and one of my highlights was heading to his house in Jersey and interviewing him, and he took me to lunch. And his autobiography is a hell of a read. Wildlife.
Yes.
Have you read
Right.
it yet?
I haven't read it yet. Actually, I've got it, but I haven't read it. Yeah, that's on my reading list. Actually, yeah.
It's a trip. It's a wild read. So,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
I mean, he's just a bona fide character. I don't know how else to put it. So,
Yeah.
I admire him. Thank you, Randy, for taking some time out of your
Sure.
Sunday here.
Good luck with the book.
And I will definitely be in touch, and Catherine will as well.
Okay, sounds good. Have a good day,
You
Barry.
too. Thanks, Randy. Bye bye.
Bye bye.